Hey again everyone, welcome to another EDH deck tech video. Today I will be going over the 3-color commander which I foreshadowed yesterday when I went through Squee. This is Tymna and Silas Renn. These two commanders, I actually wanted to make this a 4-color deck. This is the preliminary version of it as a 3-color deck. It's a very low curve, everything in the deck except for maybe 5 cards. It costs 3 or less. Very fast, very fun, artifact themed. So the point of the deck really is we have Tymna here who has lifelink and is sort of like a Phyrexian arena. So at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may pay X life, where X is the number of opponents that were dealt damage this turn if you do draw X cards. So this is going to give us our card advantage. This is also going to give us lifelink. What Silas Renn does is he has Death Touch. So again, 3 for a 2/2, this time Death Touch instead of lifelink. And whenever he hits an opponent, we're going to be able to pick an artifact in our graveyard, and until end of turn we can cast that card. So one is for card draw, the other is for card advantage through replaying cards through your graveyard. So together they make a very, very strong combination. You have 2 engines essentially that are going to net you cards that cost 3 mana apiece. Having the lifelink on Tymna again is very nice. This deck can get kind of aggressive, and so you want to be able to net back some life. The point of the deck is to play very fast, very low CMC, artifact creatures in particular, and net a ton of value off of them. Our win cons are actually things as simple as Bone Splitter and Bloodforged Battle Axe, which we tutor up with the Trinket Mage, we put on our creatures, and we just keep going in. There's a very light, very efficient control package. There's an extremely strong name a card and discard package. We've kind of included everything for that so that we can have it rolling in a 4-player game and still be able to name relevant targets, commanders, combo pieces, etc. So let's get into the deck. I'm excited to show this. The only thing missing right now, I believe, is an Unearth. I do have a copy of it. It's just in Mathis. So I'll probably take out... there's a Merchant's Dockhand, which will turn into a Mother of Runes. And then I just need to find room for the Unearth, and this deck is pretty much done. So keep in mind those are our 2 edits. So first up is Ornithopter. Playing a 0 to cast artifact. We run both of the 0 drops. We have the Memnite as well. This is really good in Silas Renn because these are 2 creatures that can get in. That you can play for free if they're in your graveyard, but also we have a sacrifice package. So we have cards like Victimize in the deck. So having a 0 drop that we can keep getting back and also use to sacrifice to get much higher value targets out of our graveyard is super nice. Any sort of 0 cast artifact with Silas Renn is absolutely amazing because you're not taxing yourself to replay the card and you're simply netting value for free. Here's the Merchant's Dockhand. So this will be your Mother of Runes. It's kind of a pet card. I really want this card to be good, but it's pretty much the fact that you have to tap the artifacts makes it just too much. I mean, 4 is already a lot for the ability, and yeah. I like the card. I don't love it that much. Mother of Runes is going to do a lot more for the deck, so unfortunately it's going to be removed. Phyrexian Revoker. You've probably seen this in my Aname deck if you follow the channel for a while. I have a real soft spot for this card just because it's better than a lot of the name a card effects like Pithing Needle because you can name things like Soul Ring and shut off mana abilities specifically. So Phyrexian Revoker is really nice, really good to bring back because every time you bring them back you get to name a new card and sort of adjust to the present board state. Mere Retriever. Mere Retriever is really good in the deck. We also run the Junk Diver because they keep coming back, and they also net us a card every time they hit the bin. So putting a Bone Splitter or a Bloodforged Battle Axe on this, we're just going in without fear, essentially, because we're going to get cards back either way. And this is once this deck gets going, it's really hard to stop. It's resilient to board wipes. It's resilient to a lot of things, and you have chump blockers for days as well. So, unless they have like a trample double strike, you're you're pretty good. Spellskite, great in the deck. Silas Renn, bringing this back, making it hard for them to target our general directly. It's very, very nice protection. We have one Ethereum Sculptor to reduce the cost of our artifact spells. That includes Silas. Yeah, just a solid card. And an artifact itself, so it can be brought back. We have the Ethereum Sculptor, a bit of control. Each player who has played a non-artifact spell this turn can't play an additional non-artifact spells. So we have a lot of artifacts in the deck. Therefore, we're generally profiting more than the opponent. We also have some very cheap, very fast answers. We have like 10 1-to-cast instant and sorceries. I think about at least 7 of them are instant speed and quite strong. So we'll have responses for our opponent's turn, and on our turn we'll generally get more value than they will. Baleful Strix, just very good. Flying Death Touch dissuades the opponents from coming in and draws a card. Bringing this back with Silas, it just nets you a ton. Tidehelm of Sculler, this is our first of the name a card. Well, I guess we already saw Revoker, so never mind that. Yeah, this is the second of the artifact ones, at least. This pinches a card from their hand and they get it back when he dies, but because of Silas, we can bring back the Tide Hollow and keep hitting a card in their hand, making sure we can see what they're doing, know what's coming, and how to prioritize our game plan. Scrap Trawler, just generically good in EDH artifact decks, I would say. Whenever another artifact is put into a graveyard, you can bring back an artifact that costed 1 less than the casting cost of the artifact that hit the yard. Yeah, or anything under 1 less than the CMC. So good card. There's the Junk Driver. Same ability as the Mirror Retriever, but it's got flying and it costs 1 more. So getting in the air is nice, and often the easiest way to make copies of our Bloodforged Battle Axe, which we're going to be spamming in order to win the game. Sphinx Summoner, great card in the deck. It is an artifact, so it's sort of a repeatable artifact tutor with Silas Renn getting in, and another way of getting our Bone Splitter and our Bloodforge. Duplicant, expensive to bring out of the graveyard if it dies, but a repeatable exile on creatures is pretty savage. Does a lot of work, and yeah, exile's nice. You always want to be exiling if you can. Meddling Mage, as I said, we got all the name of cards in here. This is a great deck in 1v1 because of that, but I've actually put them all so that in a larger game I have the ability to name multiple cards for multiple opponents. That's sort of the game plan. It's a little off theme, that's not an artifact, but we do run a Return to the Ranks, which will also hit the Meddling Mage. We also have a Reanimate, and we will have the Unearth soon. So there's lots of ways to bring back the Meddling Mage, which is great. Selfless Spirit, I really just like Selfless Spirit. It's a 2/1 flyer for 2. You can sack it to give all your creatures indestructible. We run 2 board wipes. But just having a flyer, another thing that we can put the Bloodforge or the Bone Splitter and get in on, and have some insurance on our board in case there's a wipe we weren't expecting. I just think it's really great, high value potential. Reassembling Skeleton, again, this is the small army that keeps coming back. We just want to be relentless. We want to keep coming at them. 3/1s non-stop. That's pretty much the game plan. Mentor of the Meek just lets us draw a bunch of cards. You've seen this in a lot of my decks already. It's played a ton for a good reason. Just a strong ability. Recruiter of the Guard. Yeah, it's a bit of carryover from Safi here. It hits so much in the deck. I mean, almost everything. So it's a good option. We're either going to be drawing cards with it or getting one of our name a card pieces to shut off something our opponent's doing. Bygone Bishop. We get the clue tokens whenever we cast a creature with CMC 3 or less. So very nice. Again, a flyer. I put in the Aven Mind Sensor just to shut off our opponent, and being able to have another flyer that can be played at the end of our turn, or at the end of their turn, to be able to go in the next turn is nice. Sort of surprise them. If we have the Bone Splitter or Bloodforge, it's 4 damage they weren't expecting that's coming in the following turn. Trinket Mage, all-star of the deck, because it searches up both the axes, and yeah, I just love it. I love having the theme of just put an axe on a creature and go in. Very basic, but very satisfying. Ranger of Eos, I decided to include it because what we can do with the Ranger is go grab Mennonite, Ornithopter, and play them the same turn, and that's quite a strong play. The only other one drop will be the Mother of Runes once I replace the Merchant Stockhand, and that's equally, you know, I mean, that's probably more useful because the protection on our commanders will make it a lot easier for them to get in and get their triggers, whether it's drawing cards or playing artifacts from our graveyard. So the Ranger of Eos will be doing a lot of good work, but already holds his own. Just grabbing the 2/0 drops. It's sort of a cheesy play, but I really love it. Padim, you saw we have quite a few artifacts. Alice is an artifact, so our artifacts have hexproof when she's in play. We won't often be drawing a card. The highest CMC artifact we have in the deck is actually a Mirrorworks, so that's at 5. She's really here for the protection and the fact that she is a 1/4, so she can block a good amount. Sadistic Hypnotist is a personal favorite. I just think this is a really, really useful card in a lot of decks. Any sacrifice deck, you should include it. His ability can only be activated at sorcery speed, but what you can do on your turn at any point is sacrifice a creature and have a player discard 2 cards. So, you know, again, we can, if this is in play and we play Ranger of Eos and we pull out Ornithopter and a Memnite, and we sacrifice both of them, and some players discard cards, then we swing in Silas, we bring back the whichever one is 0 that we want, we can sacrifice it again, that's another 2 cards. So this adds up really quick and empties our opponent's hands, and make sure that we can just keep being aggressive and not having to worry about what potential options they have in response to our attacks. And the last creature top end, as always, is a Sun Titan. Any low CMC deck that has a creature package just loves seeing Sun Titan. It's great in this deck because both of our commanders are 3 to cast, so I can let them go to the graveyard, and then Sun Titan will bring them back. That's also the reason why Unearth is going to be particularly good in this deck, is because both of our commanders, again, 3 CMC, and Unearth will let us pick either one of them and pull them out of the yard for 1 mana. So that's the plan. So I'll move into the artifacts next. It's not a huge package, but a lot of it is in the creature base, as you saw. So Lotus Petal, again, is just another great abusable card with Silas Renn. We can play him turn 2 if we have a Lotus Petal, and then turn 3 swing in if we connect, replay the Lotus Petal, and, you know, we have this option of netting an additional mana every turn. Next up we have a Welding Jar. This works with Silas, so it's pretty much protection for Silas, but also some of our bigger pieces like the Mirrorworks and other efficient things that we don't want to hit the yard all the time and be forced to pay mana and connect with our general. You know, sometimes it is hard to get in. So I threw in a Welding Jar at 0 to cast. We can grab it with Trinket Mage if we really need to, but generally this sort of sits on the field and just hangs out. Nihil Spellbomb, a way of exiling graveyards. We run this over the Relic of Progenitus because we can keep playing it and keep drawing a card. There's the Bone Splitter, very classic, just makes things beefier. Ether Spellbomb, this is particularly strong. If you're playing 1v1 or you're down to the last opponent and board states aren't overdeveloped, recurring this is great with Silas, having the option to swing, and then if they block, you can use the spell bomb to bounce the creature. If they don't block, you then have the option of sacrificing to bounce a creature or sacrifice to draw a card and then replay it with Silas after he's officially connected. So Ether Spellbomb is actually one of the best cards in the deck, I would say. We've got a Ghostfire Blade. 1 to play, 3 to equip normally, but only 1 to equip if it's on an artifact creature, and it gives them +2/+2. So that turns either of our generals into a 4/4. The only thing is the creature has to be colorless, so you can't actually equip this onto Silas for 1 mana, which is notable, but we have enough artifact creatures that are colorless. I felt this was worth it, and there's certain points in the game where just paying 3 mana and having a 4/4 general with either Death Touch or Lifelink is a good play. There's the Bloodforged Battle Axe. This is the best equipment in the deck by far. It is Bone Splitter that makes more copies of itself when it connects. It costs 1 more to equip. But we search this up as fast as we can, and then we just want to keep replicating it, equipping it, and doing more and more damage. It's terrific with Tymna because the beefier she gets, the more life we gain off of each hit. So it's really nice. It's a nice deck in that we have the aggressive option and sort of the more conservative option. A Soul Ring. A Sorceress Spyglass, I added this in because I just think it's neat. It's another sort of disabling effect that lets us look at their hand and see what's coming. So, yeah, we look at their hand, we choose a card name, and the activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So unlike the Phyrexian Revoker, yeah, they can use their mana abilities. We can't turn off things like Soul Ring, but it's fine. Honestly, just looking at their hand, seeing what's coming, that's a lot of good information there, and disabling 1 card, hopefully, is great. Smuggler's Copter, just sort of generic good stuff. You saw we have a lot of low power creatures. Sometimes it's not efficient for us to attack with them, so we can just equip the copter, or crew the copter, and go in with that instead. It's a flyer, it'll trigger off of Tymna, and it'll let us loot. So great card. An Isochron Scepter, like I said, we have a lot of very low CMC instants in the deck, and any one of them put onto the Scepter will net us a ton of value. We have all 3 exile for 1, so we have the Swords, the Path, and I also run a Dispatch because we're an artifact deck. This is the other kill card equipment that makes this deck very good, the Cranial Plating, giving a creature +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and having the ability to attach it at instant speed for 2 black mana. If you don't know already, this is particularly useful because what we can do is attack with multiple creatures. After blockers have been declared, we can then pay 2 black, equip it to the creature that was not assigned a blocker, and now that creature is getting in and dealing an additional damage for each artifact we control. So very strong equipment in the deck, good way of finishing the game outside of the Bloodforge and Bone Splitter. Mirrorworks, 5 to cast artifact. Whenever we play another non-token artifact, we can pay 2 and make a copy of it. So, like you see, this deck is very resilient. We keep bringing back these artifacts, and having the opportunity to create copies of them just nets us value and sort of makes us unstoppable late game if we have the engine going efficiently. Now I'll move on to the spells, and we'll do the enchantments last. So we have a Steel Shaper's Gift, of course, because we have those important artifacts that we need to seal the game, so that's what we're doing. There's no Enlightened Tutor in here, it's in Mathis, and this is a little more casual of a deck. I'm having fun with this deck, so I'm not going all out. It's really the minor edits I've already mentioned, and we're good. Mystical Tutor, just another good card. Let's look for an instant sorcery. A Brainstorm, a Reanimate, yeah, we're going to have the Unearth with it. An Entomb, which is great because we can look for any artifact, throw it in our yard, and then if we connect with Silas, we can then play it that turn. So Entomb is especially powerful in this deck. Thoughtseize, we want to have hand attack. I really like running Thoughtseize in EDH. It's kind of an odd thing by a lot of people's standards, but there's a lot of cards that just shut you off. Like if I'm playing a red player and I see a Vandal Blast with a Thoughtseize, that's the best day ever. There's a lot of decks with a lot of cards that can really mess you up. So I like knowing what's coming and taking care of it before it becomes a menace. So in that same vein, we've got Cabal Therapy, great again with, you know, the Ornithopter Memnite, Mere Retriever, and Junk Diver. If we've already looked at their hand because of all the other cards that allow us to do that, it's pretty common to get two full cards removed with this by playing it and using the flashback. So very strong in the deck. Lets us sacrifice a creature we can bring back, or sacrifice a creature that'll bring back an artifact. Then we have our Swords to Plowshare, our Path to Exile, and our Dispatch, which normally taps a creature, but if we have Metalcraft, it'll exile it. So all of these great targets with the Isochron Scepter, also Entomb. Return to the Ranks, I wanted one mass Reanimator spell. Return to the Ranks is one of my personal favorites in really aggressive low CMC decks because it hits so much. This will hit every name a card creature in our deck. So that's kind of the main point, is to try and bring back, you know, a couple of them at a time, look at a few different hands, or one a particularly threatening opponent's hand who's tutored recently, and be able to disable whatever combo they were trying to set up. Limduel's Vault, really great filtering. I'm sure you can't read that, but you look at the top 5, you have the option of putting them back in any order, or paying 1 life to put them on the bottom, and then looking at the next top 5 and putting those instead on top in any order. It's instant speed, great card. Yeah, not much else to say about that. Got an Intuition. Happy to find a place for this Intuition. I've had it for a while. I think it's a really cool card, and it's not super busted in this deck because it's a little more conservative. So we get a look for 3 cards. Our opponent will pick 1 that we get to put in our hand, and the other 2 will go in our graveyard. But if we pick 3 artifacts, we're good to go, because as soon as Silas connects, we're going to be able to play those cards from our graveyard. A Victimize, so with the Intuition, with the Entomb, we want to run a Victimize so that we can trade in some very easy recurable creature like the Ornithopter and get really good control pieces or hand attack pieces out of our yard, and get some good value. Frantic Search, really great in the deck. I could run Careful Study. I just chose to stick with Frantic Search because I get to untap my lands, and it's instant speed. But discarding cards in this deck for filtering isn't bad because of Silas. And then we have 2 board wipes. We have Day of Judgment, and we have a Supreme Verdict. So Day of Judgment is destroy all creatures. It works with the Welding Jar because there's no regenerate clause. Same idea with Supreme Verdict, except it can't be countered. So because I ran the Welding Jar, I decided to let the regeneration clause slide. The final card is a Thoughtcast. It's a really great old card. Affinity for artifacts. So often we're paying a blue and drawing 2 cards, which feels pretty good. The last of the package is the Enchantments. It's a smaller package, but pretty useful. This has actually been an all-star in the deck because we're low and aggressive. Authority of the Consuls has all our creatures, our opponent's creatures entering tapped, and whenever they play a creature, we gain a life. So this sort of counteracts Tymna's ability in that we have to pay a life to draw the cards. Well, whenever they play creatures, we're gaining life. And also, it allows us to get in easier because they can't block with the creatures they play the turn they're played. So it's a lot easier for Silas and Tymna to get in, and for us to get some value. So this has been really good in the deck. I'll just do what I've been doing. Spirit Mantle is next. Gives a creature +1/+1 in protection from creatures. So either of our generals guaranteed to get in. Same idea. Unquestioned authority. Gives our creature protection from creatures, but we also get to draw a card, so it replaces itself, which is extra good. Always Watching. I really love this card. I think it's super strong, honestly. Very undervalued. To give all your non-token creatures +1/+1 and Vigilance allows you to play offense and defense at the same time. There are no token producers in this deck, so we get everything out fast. We pull it out from the graveyard, and then having it all get +1/+1 and Vigilance is really, really strong and great in 4-player too. Propaganda, we just want one tax effect. I'm not running Prison. I just wanted one that forced them to pay mana to attack us so that we can go in and not worry so much. I chose to run the Biden of Thassa, no Coastal Piracy, because Biden is an artifact. It's more susceptible to control, but Silas can pull it out of the yard. So whenever our creatures hit, we get a draw card, and we can force our opponent's creatures to attack us, which is pretty neat and a cool combo with the Always Watching. We can swing in, we can activate Bident, and we'll have our blockers up to try and make favorable trades, and the following turn, we can just go in with the whole team and hopefully take them out. And the last enchantment is a Thopter Spy Network. Oh, I did lie. There is one token producer in the deck, which is the Spy Network. We're pretty much always going to have an artifact on the field, so we're going to get a 1/1 Thopter token every turn. And when we hit an opponent, we get a draw card. We have to hit with an artifact, but that's not too hard. So yeah, it's a good engine, steady, and gives us some block fodder. Also, they're flying tokens, which is really nice. We're moving on to the land base, and I will mention right off the bat, this is not the ideal land base. This is just a throw together land base. What is lacking is more sources that produce both black and white. I have a lot of blue-white producers, so yeah. We've got an island, we've got a swamp, we've got 2 plains. That's it for basics. We've got Windbrisk Heights. I'll put the rest of the stack here. We've got Windbrisk Heights, we've got Vault of Whispers. You could run all the artifact lands for these colors because Silas will allow you to pull them out of the yard, and your Trinket Mage will be able to tutor for them. I haven't gotten around to it, but I actually would suggest it because it's going to also count for your Thoughtcast and your Cranial Plating. So that is another pickup that I do need to make now that I think of it. Good thing I made this video. Dakmor Salvage is actually quite useful. If you're ever struggling for lands, don't forget that you can always entomb your Dakmor Salvage and then dredge it if you don't think you're going to hit a land the next turn. I have done it a few times, and you know, it's not a horrible play, it's not ideal, but hitting lands early is great, and this deck has a low enough curve where you only need to hit a couple lands to stabilize. Then we've got a Vivid Marsh. Then we've got a Shizo, so our generals can get in a little easier by giving them fear. A Bajuko Bog, the other way of taking care of graveyards. Command Tower, Tranquil Cove. So really, do what you want with this land base. I do recommend keeping in the tap lands that gain you 1 if you want the budget ones, because it's just nice. Terramorphic Expanse, Demir Aqueduct. We do run the Frantic Search, so these bounce lands potentially have a little more utility in that they can net us mana if we use Frantic Search and untap 3 lands and have been able to float. This is a bad river. Essentially, this is a really bad fetch. It comes into play tapped. You can tap, sack it, and search for a swamp or an island so that it can get your duels. Temple of Enlightenment. Vault of the Archangel, great with the squad once we assemble a good board state and want to go in, or just to get some really good value out of blocking, because it'll give everything lifelink and death touch as well. Windswept Teeth, I just kind of have a Windswept Teeth. It's yeah, it's kind of a one-off. Drowned Catacombs, Sunken Hollow, so we can grab this with the Bad River. Scoured Barrens, Azorius Chancery, Exotic Orchard, Esper Panorama, Crumbling Vestige. Interesting one, comes into play tapped. The turn it enters, you can add 1 of any color to your mana pool, but normally just taps to add a colorless. Adakar Wastes, Skycloud Expanse, Prairie Stream, Coastal Tower, kind of garbage. Cascading Cataracts, I really like this card. It's indestructible, so it's not going to get popped by land destruction, And in any sort of color intensive deck, you have this option of paying an additional mana to filter whatever combination of mana you like. So I actually think this is quite a strong card, and do recommend it for multicolor EDHs as one of your non-basics. Temple of Deceit, Sigiri Refuge, Glacial Fortress, Arcane Sanctum, and Port Town. So that's the deck. Tried to be quick, but yeah, I always take about 30 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed. Again, this is a fun deck. It's a little more casual. There's a few edits missing. These two guys work so well together. Lifelink and the Death Touch. It lets you really pick what you want to go in with. I often will play the Tymna first as sort of control bait, because really what I want is Silas out and swinging and netting me the additional value. So I'll usually rack up the commander attacks on Tymna before I do on Silas. However, after they've both been to the command zone once, I'll generally start putting them in the graveyard and recurring them from the graveyard, which is why I need the Unearth, because it's another option to do that. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some fun brew ideas. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. This is my own personal take. I just have a soft spot for Trinket Mage, and both of those axes thematically seemed pretty cool. Yeah, have a great one. Thanks for watching, and take care.